Welcome to SNF Spotlight. Today we have the privilege of being with Nancy Pappas. She is a senior care advisor with Senior Living Experts right here in Chicago. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining the SNF Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so what made you want to come on? How did you hear about us?
So our Director of Operations, Misha, is working very hard to get our name out there and message, and so he told me about this, and I was really excited to come on because any time I can talk about what's going on in senior living, it's a real passion of mine. I'm always happy to do so.
Misha is actually a chess expert. I saw that.
Yes,
Have you ever
he is.
played him? Did
I
you
will
test
not,
his skills?
I will not play him, but I know someone who has, and yeah, he's a grandmaster. So
He's a grandmaster.
yeah, so
chess player.
he's a teacher.
So tell me a little bit more about what you do as a
Yes.
senior care advisor.
So over 30 years ago, I sort of fell into senior living. I have a degree in marketing from Northern Illinois. And when I volunteered at a community in Kansas City, where I was living at the time with my husband, they knew of my marketing background and had a director of marketing position open and said, so would you like to give us a try and join us since you've been here, you volunteered? And I said, sure, and the rest is history. So that's how I literally fell into senior living, and it was something that I was able to do when my husband was getting transferred around the country. So no matter where I lived, there was always a place for me to do that, and it was also a great career to raise a family. So I spent my career in the marketing aspect of anything from in-home care. I had a stint with an in-home care agency. I've done everything from high-end continuing care retirement community, where I did marketing prior to opening, so the development marketing and everything in between, from assisted living down to Medicaid. So I have a vast career that I was able to utilize and help families now with my knowledge.
Yeah, do you find that rewarding? Like, you could be marketing anything, but to be marketing senior care, do you find that like a little bit different than other marketing professions?
Oh, absolutely. It's very personal. It's a family in crisis usually. And so any time that I can make their lives easier or come up with a solution that they wouldn't have otherwise, that is really the payoff for me, when I'm able to help them get to where they need to go and save them time.
So who introduces you initially, if we start from the beginning, who introduces you to those patients or potential, the elderly that may need some of your services?
So there's various ways that people find us. A lot of it's through word of mouth, through my own networking activities. In addition to my expertise in what I do, I sort of align myself with others that are experts in their field, whether it's long-term care insurance or a neuropsychologist to help someone with a family member with dementia. Those sorts of people I network with and get quite a few referrals from them, as well as digital marketing, which is something new that our new owner, Alex, has really brought to the table for our company by hiring Misha as our Director of Operations and really tweaking that, because we know that the adult children are the ones that are looking, and so that's how they find us.
So how are your services reimbursed or funded? Is that out of pocket? Insurance is paying for it?
Right. So we're compensated by the communities that we partner with. So I'm sort of like a realtor, I guess you could say, for assisted living or senior living. Basically, our company has contracted for over 16 years with over 300 here in the Chicagoland area communities and in-home care services that reimburse us when a family member chooses one of our recommendations.
What do you mean you partnered with 300 community centers? Like, this is like a governmental body?
No, it's the communities that I refer families to. Mostly they're private pay. So any of the communities that you see out there are more than happy to work with us. Typically, if we don't have them on our list, it's because we wouldn't put our own parents there. So there's definitely a vetting process and understanding, who the ownership is, if it's for-profit, not-for-profit, what their product is. Are they using the best practices that you typically find in senior living? So those are our what we call community partners that compensate us for bringing clients to them.
Right. Oh, so it's like the assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, memory care units, things like that. You're bringing them potential clients.
Correct.
So you're sort of advertising, marketing to the elderly in-home
Yes,
care services
yes.
and things like that, and then you advise them to go to specific places.
Correct. Make recommendations based on, the discussions I have with them and what's best suited for them. And I can save them a lot of time, because if you just Google something, you're going to get kind of the marketing fluff and not details like who is the ownership and, what kind of assisted living is it? Is it sheltered license, or is it just a regular license? Or was it a big independent building that's been open for 30 years and they just put a home health agency in an office downstairs and look, so those are the apples and oranges that people have to compare when they see terms like assisted living and so forth, that I help them wade through.
Yeah. I could imagine, having a family member. How would one know where to send them? Like, there's so many different specialties within medicine clinically, and you guys understand the different homes and different options out there, and really guiding them through that, holding their hand through that process.
Yes, definitely. Our goal is to save them a tremendous amount of time. Typically people don't start searching for this type of thing until a critical event occurs, sadly, although I don't encourage that. It's the reality that they wait until it's no longer possible for someone to live at home anymore, and sort of use that as the launching pad to get them into a community from home. So yeah, it's they can receive a list, but they really need to understand, how is it going to be paid for? There's just so many pieces of the puzzle that need to be figured out. They'll, friends will say, well, what about this place? My mom is there, but maybe that friend doesn't really understand their financial picture. And then I have to say no. So yeah, I don't waste their time and really hone in on the absolute most appropriate fit based on what they've told me when I've learned about them.
So how does that feel? I'm just thinking out loud. You're working for the senior living potential client, yet the home is paying you. Does that feel sometimes like that's not it's a conflict of interest because you're trying to work on the best behalf of the client?
No, not necessarily. I because I've sat in the seat of the people I work with in these communities, I know that occupancy for them is king. So whether someone comes in the door and they're going to make it fit, they'll make a square hole fit in a round pad. It's that's what they are tied to. That's who pays them. I don't have those occupancy pressures at all. As a matter of fact, I can give communities really good, raw, honest feedback when a client comes and sees them, or sometimes even before I even, get to that point with them. A new community opening up tells me their price, and I know what the going rate is in that area, and I'm like, you haven't shown me the value of the price differentiation. I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to have a really hard time, selling this. So I'm able to do that.
Right. So you're able to get, and are there certain facilities that maybe pay you more than other facilities, or like it's just one flat fee?
No. It's a flat fee. It's a percentage of their monthly fees. So, there's no way that you can run this business. I've been doing this for 3 years now for senior living experts, and in addition to helping families where I get reimbursed by a community, I also help a lot of families where there isn't a reimbursable situation. And that might be because they're straight Medicaid, or it might be because they chose a different community or decided to stay home, or so I help whoever comes my way regardless, which is really part of our mission and our concierge type feel that I find that I'm able to do okay when I approach it in that way of helping each family, however that looks.
This is also an amazing service because a family doesn't know what's going on. They need someone to hold their hand. There's a bunch of different options out there, and someone like you will help them for free with nothing on their side, just guiding them and what's in their best interest, understanding there's so many different clinical things, financial issues, and you're able to, be there for them. How does that feel, like helping these families?
It's tremendous. It's the greatest, pay that I get is when I have a client that I recently had a client whose 92-year-old mother was being asked to leave a facility in Florida because the husband had died, and I think they really didn't like the revenue they were getting. It was one of the first move-ins in that community, and they sort of trumped up some things that, oh, we can't take care of her anymore, and told this family she needs to be out by July 12th at 92 years old with dementia. It was devastating for them. They, were just at wit's end as to what to do, and we made it happen. So not only did we find the absolute right place where she can get the care, I actually found the resources to get her flown from Florida. So I will, I have some great resources of like-minded people that are more medically, more medical experts than I am. So I'll work with a nurse, patient advocate, or I'll work with a neuropsychologist. I've got those tools in my belt to help those families when it's out of my lane.
Wow. So it's like, how many clients do you typically, I know with real estate, let's say you had mentioned, it's like being a real estate agent.
Yes.
So over here, you're an elderly client agent where you're helping them find that place. Mm-hmm. How many clients are you typically dealing with at one time?
So typically I'm working with about 20 clients at various different points in the decision-making process. So, some of them, happen very quickly. Some of them are, more independent, and I'm going to move, by the end of the year sort of thing. So it just depends. But yeah, it's meeting them where they're at on that decision-making journey, or helping a family member get them even closer when it needs to be, a move sooner than they'd rather do that. So, yeah. Right.
So you're never at the decision of like, I think your parent needs either an assisted living facility, memory care, skilled nursing facility. You're more of come in, there was a decision made.
Yeah.
You may guide and say, maybe we should do it sooner than later, or
Correct.
Later than sooner.
Correct.
But the decision was made, and now you'll come in, and sometimes that could be, you could get them into a facility within a week, a month, 2 weeks. How long does that take?
Yeah, it takes as long as it takes for the paperwork to get done, and sometimes it happens when you're discharged from a hospital or from rehab and your Medicare dollars have ended, and now you have to find a place, so it has to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I handhold, I go on tours with families if they find that helpful for them, to be sort of that second ear. I won't make the decision for them. I just kind of paint the picture of the pros and cons, like, you told me this, and this is why I gave this community. And so even after they go and visit communities, I kind of paint the picture, and it usually becomes obvious which one is the right choice.
Yeah, they're able to see that.
They're able to see it.
So tell me about the Medicaid spend down and how that works.
That's really important. That's, the financial piece of the puzzle that's really important. And what I offer families, I think, is sort of a look at what's beyond just today and next year. That, okay, let's look at, this is going to cost you this much. Here's the nest egg. There's only one piece we don't know, and that's how long that nest egg needs to last. So we have to, stack the deck in the favor and figure out, okay, we've got this much. This is what a community costs. Medicaid is going to require you to spend down to $2,000 before you can access that benefit. However, in the middle of all that is the fact that the good communities want a certain amount of private pay before you enter. So if the worst calls I get are the ones that people are already at that point on Medicaid, and they want to live, in the city, or they want to live here, and location goes by the wayside. It comes down to literally who has an available bed, and it's really, really difficult. So these communities that operate in such a way that, want a certain percentage of private pay, tend to be more efficient, have more robust programming, are just a little bit nicer, because honestly, they really can't afford to run that operation just on a Medicaid benefit. So they have to look for other things. A lot of them do tax credit, where you have to be 62, they get tax credit. So that's why you see this age requirement as well.
Yeah. Can I take a deeper dive with you on the financial side?
Yes.
What would you say, what would private pay be paying the facility as opposed to Medicaid?
So it just depends. There are two types of Medicaid that's offered here in Illinois, which is not it for every state. But of course, your skilled nursing has Medicaid beds. It's the long-term care piece. It's, skilled nursing is 24/7 medical care. And the state of Illinois was smart enough to recognize, well, not everybody needs, medical care 24/7. As a matter of fact, most people don't. And most people can spend the rest of their life in an assisted living type level, which is basically your care for activities of daily living. So they have a program called supportive living. So when you see those two words together in Illinois, that means that it's covered by Medicaid, and then it's an assisted living level. So there's a whole list. You can Google that. You can see the list of facilities in the area. And yeah, they typically run a little bit less than your strictly private pay buildings. So they're right around the $5,500 per month range for assisted living, which is fairly low, especially in some of the suburbs on the North Shore. But it's an all-inclusive. There's not this rent plus care issue. That's the total cost. So I don't know exactly what their reimbursement is, but I know it's not $5,500, not to mention the time of the reimbursement. So the reimbursement also from the state is not very timely, and that, from an operations standpoint, really causes a lot of issues as well. So having a certain percentage coming in with either 3, 6, 9, I even have a community that wants 2 years. And that's very fluid. That's the other expert part that I have to keep informed as to where those levels lie, because they do change based on occupancy. Higher the occupancy, they want longer private pay. When occupancy's down, oh yeah, we'll consider that. So those are the things that, folks aren't going to find on Google, and, just talking with people. It would take them a lot of time to have the information that I already have and to kind of figure that out.
Right. So you're saying on a private pay basis, it would cost about $65,000 a year at $5,500 a month?
Yes.
And on a Medicaid basis, it would be less than that.
Their reimbursement's probably less than that. Yes.
Probably more, like, would you say 40,000 or you don't know the exact number?
I don't know the
exact number. It also depends
on
CMI and other factors.
Correct.
So private pay, so these facilities, let's say, so someone has a nest egg for $130,000. Is that usually enough for one of these private pay only facilities, or like how many years do they need?
Yeah,
for that?
130 is enough. The other thing you have to take it into account is your income. So in addition to that, if you've got a pension and a higher income, it can take you longer to spend down. So you have to deduct that out of the picture before you do the math, and take the 120 and divide it by, how many years it's going to take you to spend that. So yeah, if you've got that higher income, we also know there's a veterans benefit out there that can be accessed called aid and attendance that a lot of people don't know about. But again, I have resources. I don't access it. I have people that, basically spend their day trying to access that. It's like a part-time job. But yeah, for anyone who's served during wartime, it's substantial. It's around $2,000 a month, and it rises every year for the actual veteran. And it's also offered to a spouse of a veteran at a lower rate of around $1,400, but not, nevertheless still available to them.
Right. So you would say that there's a big benefit to go into a facility that takes private pay, as far as the care is concerned, typically, than a Medicaid building, than a supportive living in Illinois.
No, what I'm saying is that I think that we have to look at a couple of things. We have to look at how long they're going to have before they're going to get down to that 2,000. The next question is, depending on the age of the client and their condition, is it worth taking a risk to make another move? So that's really the next question, so that they understand that if you do move into this really nice building here and you do spend down your money, you are going to have to leave. And some people are comfortable with that because they like the building better, it offers more, and they're willing to take that risk in having to move again. There's other people that are like, no, I don't want to have to move my loved one again. Let's look at this a little bit further ahead. And so I do recommend the supportive living buildings that have that spend down requirement, but also have a certain percentage of Medicaid people already in the building. So it just depends on where the family's risk aversion is in terms of taking that risk of them having to move again.
So what do you mean by spend down? And you had mentioned the number 2,000. What do you mean by that spend down capability?
Yes.
Can you go into that a little bit?
So the only time Medicaid will cover one's long-term care is when they've spent down their assets to $2,000. This includes their home, their anything. In addition, within the 5-year period before that, any of that money will have to have gone towards their care. So you can't gift it to a child at that time. You have to do it 5 years earlier than you plan. Otherwise, the community will get penalized, and so they won't accept them. They have compliance officers. They'll look through their bank statements and say, we can't accept you because of this chunk of money that's gone. So it's that period of time prior to entering where you have to spend it on your care till you reach the 2,000, and then the community takes your Social Security or whatever income you have coming and allows you to keep $90 per month. But everything else is included. Your meals, your medications are covered by Part D, so you get this $90 spending money, for toiletries and extra things. But you're taken care of for the rest of your life.
Right. So is that typically what happens? Do the elderly typically spend down all their money and they have nothing to give to their kids? Is that how it works?
In some cases, yes. It just depends. I mean, I work with a lot of clients that have purchased long-term care insurance policies. So they have a nice policy that they've paid for that is going to cover that cost, even if it's for 3 years. Some of the better ones, if they purchase them early, are going to cover even longer. Or they invested in a way that allows them to produce income off of their assets that make up for the difference between their income and what one of these communities, charge on a monthly basis. I think we're seeing people wait longer to go into these communities. So people, you can talk to anyone and 9 out of 10 people will tell you, I want to stay at home as long as I possibly can. So we really don't see assisted living in some of these communities come into play until it's really necessary. And, we know an average stay in an assisted living is, 18 months. So it's not as long-term as it used to be.
Oh, that's it. I would have thought it was longer. I didn't know that.
Independent living can be longer. So certainly the independent, you had people in places for 20 years. You basically started out, when I started in this business, you had these, independent living that were basically there and designed for people that didn't want the burdens of home owning. And then you had the home, the nursing home. And then came assisted living, which is like, wait a minute, we can offer that care and that help in a residential setting, and they don't need to be in the nursing home, and it's much prettier and it's more fun. And then the offshoot of that then came memory care. So what you see are, these now rental communities. That's probably in terms of development, is the newest, are these standalone assisted living memory care, because people are like, no, I'm not going to spend money, to live independently and, have a calendar of activities. I'll stay home until I need help, and that's that assisted living and memory care level.
So what would you say, diving in, let's say someone going to an assisted living or staying at home, how much would the care cost at home to have like home health as opposed to assisted living? Like assisted living, you had mentioned about $65,000 a year. What would that cost on home health?
Well, the good thing about home health is that it's much more flexible. So at that point, you're only paying for what you need. So you can certainly start out with, maybe just having someone for a few hours. So I think that's where a lot of people start, especially after a critical event. Well, we can just get some help in the home. And that's typically when I meet families. That tipping point comes is when that care needs to be, 8 hours, 12 hours. Certainly 24-hour care in the home is not as cost effective. It's going to cost you as much as a nursing home at around $15,000 a month for round the clock in-home one-on-one care.
Oh, a nursing home private pay is $15,000.
About $14,000 to $15,000.
So that's $180,000.
Right. So then, So then I think when you're right around the 8-hour mark, you're kind of equal then to assisted living, and then you can make that decision. There's other factors to think about too. I mean, COVID. The other side of COVID was isolation. So, people were safe from COVID, but they were terribly isolated, which we really are seeing a busy season this year, I think, because of that. People saw a major decline in their loved one, I mean, for no particular reason than just that isolation of, eating TV dinners and, watching the news all day and not having that social interaction if they're not able to do that on their own. So, I mean, that's another thing to consider about, well, maybe, their friends are gone, all the things they used to do are no longer there, so maybe staying at home isn't the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Having some peers to be able to spend time with, play some games, enjoy life.
Absolutely. I think it encourages people to be more independent. I find that, sometimes caregivers one-on-one, when you have that one-on-one, ring the bell and come here can make us a little bit more dependent than we should be. And I've seen that happen to people where they're not encouraged as much as they could, and it really hurts them when it comes to their mobility, which is that's the tipping point. You want to stay mobile, because that's what'll land you at a nursing home when you're no longer weight bearing.
So do specialty care buildings have different costs? Does that fluctuate?
You mean in terms of this level of care, or?
Yeah, I guess like you have the memory care, for example.
Yep.
You have the skilled nursing facility, you have assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
Assisted living, memory care is part of the assisted living, so that would be about the same range.
Yes, and then you have memory care assisted living, which is what you're seeing. You're seeing now developments of buildings popping up everywhere that are sort of this assisted living with a memory care component, and then some shades of gray in between, early dementia, later dementia. So memory care is always more expensive. Your assisted living is basically scheduled care. It's someone that just needs some help with medication reminders, maybe some personal care, but can pretty much make decisions about how to conduct their day, when to go down to dinner, and so forth. So that's kind of that lower end. And then you kind of morph into that middle grounds of cognitive impairment, of not really getting down to dinner, maybe not hydrating enough, and just that oversight that's necessary, and then full-blown memory care where someone certainly cannot plan their day. That resident needs a lot of structure, which, that's what we discovered, that we needed to separate those folks because their needs were so much different. Someone with memory loss can be physically in great shape and need no personal care whatsoever, but really needs that structured day. And so the best communities really have that programming and the caregivers that understand it. So I always tell my clients, don't let them call you and tell them, they can't take care of them, or they won't take their medication. And the answer is, well, I know, that's why I need you to help me. So that's how you know when they're not in the right level of care.
So what do you like most about your job?
I love for the people that I'm able to work with and kind of pick and choose. People like myself that have been in the industry a long time, that really care about seniors and kind of what's going on, and always learning something new. So I love that freedom, and working with people that don't have the desire to grow big, but to do the right thing and help as many people as possible. So that's my favorite thing about what I do now versus being back in the field.
Thank you so much for coming on to the SNF Spotlight. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me.